Admiral James Stone stood at the window of his office aboard the Earth Defense Station, his weathered face reflecting off the reinforced glass as he stared at the diplomatic vessels hanging in orbit. The aliens had been sending these ships for weeks now, each carrying the same message. The Galactic Council requests Earth's presence at the peace talks. But Stone knew better. The data pad in his hand contained proof of what he had suspected all along. These weren't peace talks. They were a trap. "Show me the colony footage again," he commanded. The screen lit up, displaying thermal images of what had once been the Weber colony on Mars' second moon. The settlement, home to over 10,000 people, had vanished overnight 3 months ago. Official reports blamed a catastrophic life support failure, but the truth was far worse. The thermal recording showed massive ships, unlike anything in Earth's database, systematically loading unconscious humans into cargo holds. The Council hadn't just been watching Earth. They had been harvesting humans in secret. In the command center below, Commander Robert Ward was reviewing the last pieces of intelligence from their deep space probes. The so-called diplomatic missions had planted scanning arrays throughout the solar system, mapping Earth's defenses and cataloging military installations. Each peace envoy was actually a sophisticated reconnaissance unit. "Status report," Stone's voice crackled over the comm. "Fleet is in position, Admiral," Ward replied, his fingers dancing over the tactical display. "All ships report ready. The Council vessels still think they're here for another round of talks." Stone's jaw tightened. How many of their ships are in range? 47 diplomatic vessels, plus their escorts. About 30% of their main fleet. Ward paused, double-checking his numbers. "If we strike now, we can take out their command structure and cripple their response capability." Stone thought about the Weber colony, about the thousands of missing humans who had been stolen away in the night. The Council thought Earth was weak, ready to be harvested and controlled like so many other species before them. They expected humans to bow down, to come begging for a seat at their table. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Execute Operation First Strike," Stone ordered, his voice cold and clear. Ward's hands flew across the console, sending encoded burst transmissions to the hidden human fleet. Ships that had been lurking behind asteroids and inside gas clouds suddenly powered up their weapons. Military vessels disguised as cargo haulers dropped their holographic camouflage. In total, 300 Earth warships revealed themselves in perfect attack formation. The Council ships didn't even have time to raise their shields. The first salvo of human kinetic weapons tore through the diplomatic vessels like paper. Magnetically accelerated tungsten rods, traveling at near relativistic speeds, reduced the alien ships to expanding clouds of debris. Their escorts tried to respond, but Earth's ships were already executing their second attack run. Council vessels attempting to broadcast distress signals, one of Ward's officers reported. "Jam everything," Ward commanded. "No messages get out until we're done here." The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 15 minutes. When it was over, the pride of the Galactic Council's fleet was nothing but cooling wreckage scattered across Earth's orbit. Ward looked up at the Admiral's office, where Stone still stood watching. "All targets neutralized, sir. No Council ships escaped. Our losses are minimal. 3 ships damaged, no casualties." Stone nodded slowly. "Send the message." Ward turned back to his console and transmitted the carefully prepared broadcast on all frequencies used by the Council. The message was short, clear, and utterly terrifying to anyone who understood what it meant. "The human race declines your invitation for peace talks. This is our response. We are coming." In the days that followed, as news of the attack spread through Council space, many dismissed it as a tragic accident or a terrible misunderstanding. Surely the humans would now come to negotiate, to explain their actions, to seek some kind of compromise. They were wrong. This wasn't the start of negotiations. This was the start of a war. Commander Ward stood in the dimly lit data center, surrounded by holographic displays showing information recovered from the destroyed Council ships. Each new file they decrypted made his blood boil with rage. The truth was far worse than anyone had imagined. "How long?" Admiral Stone asked, his voice barely above a whisper. 300 years, sir," Ward replied, pulling up another set of records. "They've been manipulating us since the Industrial Revolution. Every major technological setback, every unexplained accident at research facilities." He paused, swallowing hard. It was them. All of it. The screens showed detailed reports of Council operations on Earth. They had sabotaged nuclear research, destroyed promising laboratories, and eliminated scientists who got too close to discovering faster-than-light travel. But that wasn't the worst part. Director Reed walked in, carrying a new datapad. His face was ashen. "We found the colony records," he said, handing the pad to Stone. It wasn't just Weber Colony. They'd been taking humans for centuries. The numbers were staggering. Millions of humans, carefully selected and harvested from remote areas, had been shipped to alien worlds. Official records listed them as victims of natural disasters, lost ships, or unexplained disappearances. In reality, they had been turned into slave labor for Council worlds. "Show me the Mars footage again," Stone ordered. The holographic display changed, showing the night Weber Colony vanished. The Council ships had used advanced technology to put the entire settlement to sleep. Then they simply loaded everyone, men, women, children, into massive cargo holds like cattle. "They were going to do this to all of us," Ward said, his fists clenched. "These peace talks. They were planning a full-scale harvest of Earth." The evidence was clear. The Council had seen humanity's recent technological advances as a sign that Earth was ready for integration. Their plan was to use the peace talks to get their ships past Earth's defenses. Then, in one coordinated strike, they would take most of humanity as slaves, leaving just enough people behind to maintain basic infrastructure. Director Reed, Stone turned to face the intelligence chief. "What's the status of the Council's response to our attack?" Reed brought up a new display. "They're scrambling. Our strike took out most of their diplomatic corps and a third of their military leadership. They're broadcasting messages on all channels, begging for negotiations." He smiled grimly. "They still think we'll listen to reason." "They don't understand us at all," Ward said, studying the tactical display. "They've spent so long seeing us as cattle that they can't imagine us as warriors." Stone walked to the main screen, where a map showed Council space, countless worlds connected by trade routes and jump points. "How many human slaves are out there?" he asked. "Conservative estimate. At least 20 million, Reed answered, "spread across 32 worlds." Stone was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was filled with cold determination. "Send word to Earth Command. We're not negotiating. We're not accepting surrenders. We're going to get our people back." He turned to face Ward and Reed, his eyes hard as steel. "And we're going to make them pay for every single human they ever took." Ward nodded, already pulling up fleet deployment plans. "What about the Council's latest peace offers?" "Send them our standard response," Stone said, walking toward the door. "But this time, add something extra. Tell them we found their slave colony records." He paused at the threshold. "Let them spend their last free moments knowing exactly why we're coming for them." As Stone left, Ward looked at the galaxy map again. The Council had spent centuries treating humans like animals, never considering what might happen if their prey learned to fight back. Now, as Earth's fleets prepared for full-scale war, they were about to learn a harsh lesson. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were going to burn the Council's worlds until they found every last human slave. And this time, there would be no peace talks. The massive shipyard that once produced cargo vessels now birthed warships. Commander Ward watched through the observation window as automated systems assembled another Planet Breaker-class battleship. These monsters of war were unlike anything humanity had built before. each one capable of reducing a planetary defense system to rubble in hours. Production is ahead of schedule, Captain Mitchell reported, handing him the latest numbers. Converting Earth's economy to war production took only 3 months instead of the predicted 6. Ward nodded, his eyes fixed on the gleaming hull of the new warship. How many ships so far? 200 planet breakers completed, another 300 under construction. The smaller attack craft are coming off the lines even faster. Mitchell paused, checking her datapad. The Council never imagined we could build ships this quickly. That was true. The aliens had spent centuries keeping humanity's technology in check, never realizing they were actually forcing humans to become more efficient. When Earth's industries finally broke free of their constraints, they exploded with productivity. Status of Project Thunderbolt? Ward asked, turning away from the window. Mitchell brought up a new hologram showing a massive weapon mounted on one of the planet breakers. The prototype exceeded all expectations. It can punch through Council shields like they're paper. We've already installed them on 50 ships. The weapon was a perfect example of human innovation. Council ships relied on energy shields, so humanity developed weapons that simply ignored them. Thunderbolt fired specially designed projectiles that phased through energy barriers and rematerialized inside enemy ships. The Council had no defense against it. An alert flashed on Mitchell's pad. "Sir, the first attack fleet is reporting in. They've reached their target." Ward moved to the tactical display, where a holographic map showed a Council shipyard near their border. It was one of their largest military facilities, protected by heavy defenses and a full battle fleet. The Council thought it was safe. They were wrong. "Show me," Ward ordered. The display lit up with live footage from the battle. 20 planet breakers dropped out of hyperspace, their massive forms appearing right in the middle of the Council's defense fleet. Before the alien ships could react, the human vessels opened fire. Thunderbolt weapons flashed, sending projectiles straight through Council shields. Ships that had survived countless battles exploded in seconds. The few Council vessels that managed to return fire found their weapons useless against the planet breakers' armor. Another human innovation developed specifically for this war. Council forces attempting to surrender, Mitchell reported. Ward's face hardened. Standard response. No mercy, no prisoners. The planet breakers continued their assault, methodically destroying every Council ship and installation. When they finished with the fleet, they turned their guns on the shipyard. The massive facility, which had taken the Council 50 years to build, was reduced to floating debris in less than an hour. "All targets destroyed," Mitchell announced. "No survivors. We lost no ships." Ward allowed himself a small smile. This was humanity's first major victory. But it wouldn't be the last. The Council was learning the hard way that they had made a terrible mistake. They had kept humanity contained, thinking they were protecting themselves. Instead, they had created the perfect weapon against themselves. "Interesting message coming in," Mitchell said suddenly. "We're picking up transmissions from some of the Council's slave worlds. They saw the battle footage. What are they saying?" "They're asking." Mitchell looked up from her pad, surprised. "They're asking if we're accepting allies." Ward thought about the millions of humans still enslaved on Council worlds, and about all the other species who had suffered under Council rule. Maybe humanity wasn't just fighting for themselves anymore. "Tell them we'll consider it," he said finally. "But first, we need to show the galaxy exactly what happens when you enslave humans." The planet breakers were already moving toward their next target. The Council had begun this fight by treating humans like animals. Now they would learn why that was the biggest mistake they had ever made. The Council chamber was in chaos. Holographic representatives from 24 alien species shouted and argued as reports of another human victory flashed across their displays. Commander Ward watched the intercepted transmission with interest, noting how the once mighty Council members now turned on each other like cornered animals. "Play the last part again," he told Captain Mitchell. The recording showed the Council's high speaker begging for unity. We must stand together against the human threat. The alien leader insisted, but even as he spoke, 3 member species announced their withdrawal from the Council. They had seen enough of humanity's warships to know which way the wind was blowing. "Sir," Mitchell said, checking her datapad, "we're getting more messages from enslaved species. The Valdans and Nexari have offered to share their jump point maps in exchange for protection." Ward studied the tactical display, where red dots showed Council strongholds and blue marks indicated human fleet positions. The war was going better than anyone had expected. In just 6 months, humanity had destroyed 1/3 of the Council's military power. "What about the human colonies?" he asked. Mitchell's face lit up. "That's why I came to show you this." She brought up a new hologram showing a massive space station. "The Valdans told us about this place. It's a processing center where the Council sorts new slaves before shipping them to different worlds. According to their intel, there are at least 50,000 humans there right now." Ward straightened up immediately. "Distance. 3 jumps from our current position. The station's defenses are strong." But she smiled. "Nothing our planet breakers can't handle." Ward was already moving toward the door. "Get me a direct line to Admiral Stone. We're going to." An alert cut him off. The tactical display flashed as new signals appeared. Multiple Council ships dropping out of hyperspace. Mitchell reported. They're flying white flags, sir." Ward frowned. The Council had tried this trick before, pretending to surrender only to launch surprise attacks. But something was different this time. These ships were smaller, sleeker, not the usual Council designs. "We're receiving a transmission," Mitchell said. It's from the Council's own slave worlds. Their workers have taken control of these ships. They're defecting to our side." The message was simple. "We saw what you did to the Council fleet. We want to help you destroy our masters." Ward thought quickly. This could be a trap, but it could also be exactly what Earth needed. Allies who knew Council space from the inside. He made his decision. "Tell the Admiral we might have to delay the station rescue," he said. "We need to verify these defectors first." The next few hours were tense. Earth's ships kept their weapons locked on the defectors while special teams went aboard to check their stories. Every scan, every interview confirmed the same thing. These were genuine rebels, tired of Council rule and inspired by humanity's resistance. "It's spreading," Mitchell said, showing Ward updated intelligence reports. "Slave revolts on 12 Council worlds. Their whole system is starting to crack." Ward nodded slowly. The Council had ruled through fear for thousands of years, keeping dozens of species in check by convincing them resistance was hopeless. Now humanity had shown the galaxy that the Council could bleed. "Send word to the defectors," he ordered. "Tell them we accept their help. And send this message to Earth Command. We're going to need a lot more ships." Mitchell looked at him curiously. "Sir, the game has changed, Captain." Ward gestured at the tactical display, where new Allied ships were now marked in green. "We're not just fighting to free humans anymore. We're going to tear down the whole damn Council, and we're going to help every slave species get their revenge." As if to emphasize his words, another alert showed 3 more Council member species announcing their withdrawal. The mighty Galactic Council, which had stood for millennia, was falling apart in the face of humanity's relentless assault. And this was just the beginning. The emergency alert woke Commander Ward in the middle of the night. He rushed to the bridge of his Planet Breaker-class ship, still pulling on his uniform jacket. Captain Mitchell was already there, her face pale as she stared at the tactical display. "They used the darkness," she said quietly. Ward felt his blood run cold. The darkness was a forbidden weapon, outlawed by the Council itself 10,000 years ago. It didn't just kill. It erased all life from a planet, leaving behind nothing but a dead rock floating in space. "Where?" he demanded. Mitchell brought up the footage. "New Earth colony on Proxima B, 3 million settlers." She paused, her voice shaking. There were no survivors. The display showed a planet turned gray and lifeless. The Council had finally shown their true desperation. They had used their worst weapon, hoping to frighten humanity into submission. They had made a terrible mistake. "Get me Admiral Stone," Ward ordered. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with cold fury, "and prepare the fleet for immediate jump." The response from Earth Command came quickly. Stone's hologram appeared on the bridge, his face grim. "You've seen it." "Yes, sir." "Your orders?" Stone's reply was simple. "Protocol Zero." Everyone on the bridge went silent. Protocol Zero was Earth's ultimate response plan. Direct attacks on Council member homeworlds. Until now, they had only targeted military installations and slave centers. This would be different. "Understood, sir," Ward said. "Which world first?" "All of them." Stone's hologram flickered. "They used the darkness on our people. Now they learn what happens when humans decide to stop being merciful." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Ward's fleet, combined with ships from their new allies, split into strike groups. Each group was assigned a Council homeworld. The Planet Breakers would lead the assault, with smaller ships providing support. "Council forces are scrambling to defend their worlds," Mitchell reported. "They're begging for peace talks again." Ward ignored the messages. The time for talks had ended when they used the darkness. He watched as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the first target, the homeworld of the Council's High Speaker. "They're broadcasting the surrender message," Mitchell said. "Standard response," Ward replied. "No mercy." The Planet Breakers opened fire. Their Thunderbolt weapons tore through the planet's defenses like paper. Orbital stations exploded, defense platforms crumbled, and enemy ships were reduced to drifting wreckage. But they didn't stop there. For the first time, the Planet Breakers lived up to their name. Massive guns turned toward the surface, targeting government centers, military bases, and industrial complexes. They didn't use the darkness. Humans weren't that cruel. But they made sure the Council would never recover from this day. Similar scenes played out across Council space as humanity's fleets struck simultaneously. In one day, they did more damage than the Council had suffered in the last 1,000 years. "Message from the rebel allies," Mitchell said. 3 more slave worlds have broken free. They're asking to join us." Ward nodded. The Council's show of brutality had backfired completely. Instead of frightening their opponents, they had united them. Now every species that had suffered under Council rule saw their chance for freedom. "Sir," Mitchell's voice was urgent. "Deep space sensors are picking up something. Looks like it's a mass exodus. Council leadership is trying to flee to unknown space." "Let them run," Ward said, watching another Council defense fleet burn. "They can tell stories about this day. They can warn others about what happens when you push humanity too far." The Council had ruled the galaxy through fear for millennia. Now they were learning a new kind of fear. The terror of facing an enemy who had nothing left to lose and no more mercy to give. And humanity was just getting started. Commander Ward stood on the bridge of his Planet Breaker, watching the massive fleet gather for humanity's final offensive. 500 human warships formed the core of the attack force, supported by 300 vessels from their former slave allies. This would be the largest military operation in galactic history. "Last intelligence report from the Council core systems," Captain Mitchell said, bringing up the tactical display. "They've pulled back everything they have left. 15,000 ships defending their capital world." Ward studied the enemy positions. The Council had gathered their remaining forces in one place, hoping that sheer numbers would save them. They still didn't understand what they were facing. "Status of Operation Anvil?" he asked. Mitchell's fingers danced across her console, bringing up a new display. "All strike teams are in position. Former slaves on 20 Council worlds are ready to rise up on our signal. The Council's about to find out how many enemies they really have." The plan was simple but devastating. While the main fleet attacked from the front, rebels would strike from within. The Council wouldn't just be fighting a war. It would be facing a revolution. "All ships report ready," Mitchell announced. "Waiting for your orders, sir." Ward took a deep breath. This was the moment that would decide everything. Send the signal to all ships. Jump in 3, 2, 1. Space twisted as hundreds of ships made the jump to hyperspace simultaneously. When they emerged, they were facing the gathered might of the Council's defense fleet. For a moment, everything was still. Then hell broke loose. The planet breakers opened fire first, their thunderbolt weapons cutting through the front lines of the Council fleet. Enemy ships exploded by the dozens, their fancy shields useless against human technology. The Council forces tried to respond, but they were facing an enemy unlike any they had fought before. Council ships breaking formation. Mitchell reported, excitement in her voice. They're trying to regroup, but our allies are hitting their flanks. Former slave species, now armed with human weapons, struck from multiple directions. Ships that had once transported slaves now brought freedom in the form of plasma torpedoes and rail gunfire. The Council's mighty armada began to crack. Signal from the surface, Mitchell said suddenly. The rebels are moving. Government centers across the capital are under attack. Ward nodded grimly. Tell all ships, push forward. Don't let them regroup. The battle raged for hours. Council ships fought with the desperation of those who knew they were facing their end. But they were fighting an enemy driven by centuries of stored rage, backed by every species they had ever oppressed. Council Command Center located, Mitchell reported. They're in a bunker under the central citadel. Heavy defenses. Target locked, Ward replied. All planet breakers, concentrate fire. Break their last chain. 12 planet breakers turned their main guns on a single point. The combined firepower was enough to crack a planet. Against the Council's bunker, it was overkill. The entire center of the capital city vanished in a flash of light. Council leadership is gone, Mitchell confirmed. Their fleet is surrendering. It's over, sir. We won. But Ward knew it wasn't quite over. Send in the ground teams. I want every slave freed, every prison opened, every chain broken. He paused, looking at the burning capital below. And find their records. All of them. The galaxy needs to know exactly what they did, so this never happens again. As liberation forces landed across the capital world, Ward received one last message. It was from Admiral Stone. Well done, Commander. Now let's rebuild this galaxy right. The Council had ruled through fear and slavery for thousands of years. They had thought themselves untouchable, eternal, but they had made one fatal mistake. They had enslaved humans. Now their empire was ashes, their power broken, their crimes exposed to the galaxy. And humanity was ready to build something better in its place. 1 year after the fall of the Council, Commander Ward stood in the great hall of what had once been the Council's central chamber. The room had been rebuilt, but not to its former glory. Instead of golden walls and elaborate decorations, it was simple and functional, just like the new alliance that now governed the galaxy. The last slave processing center has been destroyed, Captain Mitchell reported, walking up beside him. All recovered humans have been offered transport back to Earth or our colonies. She paused, checking her datapad. Though many want to stay and help rebuild the worlds they were forced to work on. Ward nodded, unsurprised. Humans had always been adaptable. Even those who had suffered under Council rule were now helping to create something new from the ashes of the old system. What about the other species? He asked. Mitchell brought up a holographic display showing dozens of worlds. The Human Protection Alliance now includes 37 former slave species. Each has been given control of their homeworld, and any colonies they can prove were originally theirs. She smiled. They're calling Earth the Liberator World now. That title still felt strange to Ward. Humanity had gone from being unknown slaves to the most powerful force in the galaxy in less than 2 years. But power wasn't what they had fought for. Status of the Council remnants, he asked, though he already knew the answer. Still hiding in unknown space, Mitchell replied. Our deep space probes track their ships sometimes, but they never stay in one place long. They've become nomads, afraid to settle anywhere. She paused. The hunter became the hunted. The irony wasn't lost on Ward. The council had spent centuries treating other species like animals to be herded and controlled. Now they lived in constant fear, never knowing if the next system they entered would contain a Human Protection Alliance patrol. "Admiral Stone's ship is approaching," Mitchell said. "The ceremony will begin soon." Today was important, the formal signing of the Freedom Accords. Representatives from every freed species would declare their independence and their commitment to mutual protection. Never again would one group be allowed to enslave another. "Commander Ward," a young officer approached, carrying a message pad. "We've received the final casualty reports from the war. Would you like to review them?" Ward took the pad, reading the numbers carefully. The cost had been high, millions dead on both sides, but the alternative had been worse, a future where humanity and countless other species remained in chains. "The Council never understood," he said quietly, handing the pad back. "They thought offering peace talks would save them. They didn't realize that some things are worth fighting for." The Great Hall began to fill with representatives from across the galaxy. Former slaves now stood as equals, their heads held high. Many wore their old chains as jewelry, a reminder of what they had overcome. Admiral Stone arrived last, his presence commanding respect from all present. He had led humanity from secret slavery to open victory, and now he would help lead the galaxy to a better future. "Ready for your speech?" Mitchell asked Ward. He nodded. As the face of human military power, he had been chosen to address the gathering. But his message wouldn't be about war or victory. It would be about what came next. Ward stepped up to the podium, looking out at the assembled species, former enemies and slaves now united in purpose. His words were simple but carried the weight of humanity's promise to the galaxy. "We chose war when they begged for peace because peace without freedom is just slavery with better chains. Now we choose to build something new, not an empire, not a council, but a true alliance. We will remember the cost of freedom, and we will defend it with everything we have. Let the galaxy remember this day not as the end of a war, but as the beginning of a future where no species need fear enslavement again." The applause that followed wasn't just for his words. It was for the new age that humanity had helped create. An age where peace would be built on freedom, not fear. And this time, it would last.